What's up, y'all? Welcome to Tabletop Bros. Today we're going to be unboxing the new Deathwing Assault Box. This is the launch box for the Dark Angel's new codex, and it's your first shot to get a hold of it. It did sell out a lot of places, but you can still find them for a pretty good deal online or in your local store. So just kind of flipping it over, we can take a look at the actual contents here. So we have the Codex Supplement Dark Angels. You will need the Space Marine Codex to play with this force. And then also some transfer sheets, assembly guide, datasheet cards, and then it's 22 Citadel miniatures, 10 Terminators, 2 Dark Angel upgrade frames, 5 Deathwing Knights, Belial, 3 Watchers in the Dark, and 3 Teleport Homers. So they're definitely stretching it to make it sound like it's more models than it is. It's really just 10 Terminators, 5 Deathwing Knights, and Belial, and then the rest are basically just tokens. So it's really just 16 models. But let's go ahead and bust it open and take a look. So definitely some cool art on the actual box itself. All right, so here we got the contents. Okay, so the box is definitely packed tight. Starting off here, we got the Dark Angel upgrade transfer sheets. So some nice new decals from them. Then we got a big old pack of bases. And then we have the actual datasheet cards. We'll take a look at these in a minute. And then our limited edition codex. And then in the back here, we've got also the assembly guide. Okay, so just sorting through these real quick. We've got 3 sprues that are going to make up the actual Deathwing Knights. So the first 2 sprues, or like realistically, this is 1 full sprue, or 2 half sprues. This one has got the 4 regular shields on it. It's got some various different weapons. We've got the maces and the swords as well. We've got some pretty cool like shoulder pads and everything. And this is an all new kit. It used to be the Deathwing Knights and Deathwing Command, but it does look like the Deathwing Command has been removed from the range. So now this just makes the Deathwing Knights. The actual models look really nice, and these are basically just Dark Angel specific Terminators with close combat weapons. Really, really nice looking models though. And then this is the other sprue that comes in the set, or like the other half sprue. So this one has like the Watcher in the Dark and a couple extra options, a bunch of the different heads. Really, really nice looking models right here. It does end up coming up with a total of 1 extra shield. And then it looks like maybe some extra combat weapons as well. Not just your options, but the stuff to make the character, or like squad leader. All right, and then we have Belial. So this is our new Belial character. Really, really nice looking model. Definitely super chunky Terminator. He is the commander of the Deathwing. And very well done. Substantially better than the old miniature. All right, and then next we have 2 of the Deathwing upgrade frames. So each one of these is basically a half sprue, and then it's divided itself into like 2 halves. So each of what we're looking at here is basically like a quarter sprue if we were to separate these. So each one has a Watcher in the Dark on it, and then they each have the option for the plasma cannon, which is something that's specific to Dark Angels. And then it's got a bunch of different shoulder pads. These are like regular Dark Angel shoulder pads for like the infantry. And then we also see some like upgrade ones as well. And then of course we have like all of the Terminator shoulder pads. And then these are like the Gravis style shoulder pads. And then there's a bunch of other little like Griblies and stuff like that. We see like some open and closed books, a little something for the Raven Wing, and some like Raven Wing like little icons and stuff. A bunch of different head options. Again, just a really nice looking sprue. Definitely something to add some flavor to the Dark Angels. And I'd say this is substantially better than the regular Dark Angel upgrade frame. But like they used to have some old school Dark Angel upgrades for like Raven Wing and stuff like that. I think you can still get a hold of them, and they were really nice. So at some point in time, maybe we'll see something like a Raven Wing sprue upgrade as well. But in the meantime, this does a really good job encompassing like the Dark Angel upgrades, and then also the stuff you need for the Terminators, which is going to turn your regular Terminator squad into a Dark Angel specific Terminator squad. So good looking stuff right here. 2 of these included. Okay, and then from there, we're going to have 2 sets of the Terminators. So these are the generic Terminators that you would get for any chapter, but this is not the easy to build kit from Leviathan. This is your full kit with all the options. And this one is basically 1 full sprue and then a half sprue, or like 3 half sprues. So just starting off right here, we have the Power Fist and Chain Fist options. We've got all the heavy weapon options for like the Cyclone Missile Launcher, the Assault Cannon, all that good stuff. Obviously the plasma is separate. We do have chain fists and power fists, as well as a power sword for the sergeant. So pretty cool and nice to have the multi-part plastic kit, as the Leviathan kit did not include chain fists. And then here's our other half sprue. We can see one of the shoulder pads already fell off. So it doesn't look like anything broken in the set, just a little bit falling off. So here we've got like the teleport Homer, some different like head options. We see like the generic and the Crux Terminator shoulder pads. And then of course we have like all the upgrade ones as well. Here we have like the last little bits for the Cyclone Missile Launcher and then our Assault Cannon. And then it looks like you can also do the Heavy Flamer here as well. So pretty nice little setup right here. Alright, and then let's bust into the actual codex and cards. So right off the bat, we've got Lionel Johnson. Then we see the Inner Circle Companions, the brand new unit that's not out yet. We have Azrael, Chapter Master. We have Asmodai, the Dark Angel Inner Circle Interrogator Chaplain. That model not out yet as well. And then we see the new Belial. And then we have Ezekiel, still have the old picture on here. So I do suspect at some point in time, we'll see a new Ezekiel model. But in the meantime, this is just the old one. And then we see Samael, Lazarus, and then that's it for the characters. And then from there we have the Deathwing Terminator Squad. We have the Deathwing Knights. And then we have the Ravenwing Command Squad. So interesting to see that they kept the Ravenwing Command Squad, but got rid of the Deathwing Command Squad. And then we see the Ravenwing Black Knights, Ravenwing Dark Shroud, Landspeeder Vengeance, and then the Ravenwing Dark Talon, and Nephilim Jet Fighter. And then that is actually it for the Dark Angels cards. You're going to need the regular Space Marine cards also if you want to play this, and same with the Codex as well, as this is essentially just an expansion faction for the Adeptus Astartes. And then we have the Combat Patrol stuff, and we'll see the red up in the corner specifically says Combat Patrol. So we see Master Zachariah, the Gravis Captain, and then we have the Intercessor Squad, our Hellblaster Squad, and our Blade Guard Veteran Squad. So it's 10 Intercessors, 5 Hellblasters, the Captain in Gravis armor, and then 3 Blade Guard Veterans. So we see that they've definitely made some changes to the Combat Patrol, removing the Redemptor Dreadnought and switching around some other stuff as well. So no big linchpin piece anymore, but I think that's probably much better for balance, as the Redemptor was pretty much unstoppable in Combat Patrol and was a little bit too much for a small game. But they're still going to have some nice punch in combat. I think the Gravis Captain is going to be very durable. And then also those Hellblasters are going to be nice and shooty. The Intercessors, you get 10 of them and you can divide them into 2 5-man squads. So they're going to be good for holding objectives. It is interesting though that they don't actually give you like a separate sheet or anything like that with like the enhancements, the stratagems, or the objectives. I would have really liked to have seen something like that as well, so that you don't even need to use the book when you're playing Combat Patrol. You could just use the cards. And right now that's just not possible how they do it. Alright, so now as far as the actual codex is concerned, I did have a little time here and went ahead and flipped through this. And I'm not going to lie, the Dark Angels are still really cool and everything, but they just seem a little bit underpowered. Compared to some of the other like factions and special rules and everything for the Space Marines, the Dark Angels are a little bit lackluster. Now we have the points in this book, but we don't have the actual new points for like the Dark Angels army. So that's going to come out later once the actual codex is released. Obviously this is sort of like a early release setup with the special edition codex. So later on we'll get like the Inner Circle Companions and the actual codex release. We'll get Asmodai and hopefully some other stuff as well. But some cool art in here, a little background, obviously some stories about the individual characters and various units. Here we see like the successor chapters showing off like some of the different paint jobs and then a little bit of background about them as well. So that is definitely pretty cool. Some stories in here and then some nice actual like model art, some really beautifully painted models. We see obviously the lion at the center, some of the new Deathwing Knights with Belial, Asmodai, Inner Circle Companions, and then a bunch of other good stuff as well. So super cool. Obviously some really nicely painted miniatures and some really cool models. Then we see a little breakdown about the actual like chapters and paint jobs and everything, just showing off some more models. So lots of good art in here, lots of like good photographs for painting references, and then just also to kind of sell you on the models and the actual army itself. So pretty cool. Definitely some really, really nice stuff. Very vivid artwork. And then moving on, we have the Combat Patrol breakdown. So this just breaks down the actual Combat Patrol that we just talked about. and then a little bit of a painting guide and everything for you, basing. And then this talks about the actual combat patrol rules. So we see the Oath of Moment ability, our 2 different enhancements, the secondary objectives, and then the stratagems. It would have just been really nice for them to put this on like 2 cards so that you wouldn't even need the book at all if you were playing combat patrol. I don't know why they couldn't just make like 2 more cards, or even potentially just print that on the back of the combat patrol cards instead of just having like the generic Dark Angel symbol. So that would have been a good idea and definitely an awesome improvement, but obviously we don't see that. And then here we see just the same datasheet cards that we got separate cards for, and then that's it. So then for the forces of the Dark Angels, so I've already had a look through this and everything and kind of taken a look at it. The actual army rule is still Oath of Moment, and then there's a breakdown for what like the Unforgiven are, and then essentially like who the Ravenwing and Deathwing are and what models count as them, and that's mostly for like stratagems and stuff like that. Once we actually get into the army, there's 3 different detachments. So we have the Unforgiven Task Force, and this one is the most similar to like the existing Dark Angels kind of detachment. And then from there we have the Inner Circle Task Force. This one is specifically for like the more elite like Deathwing and stuff like that. And then we have the Company of Hunters, and this one is basically like the Ravenwing Task Force. So only 3 of those to choose from, so that's a little bit disappointing, as we saw like Tyranids and some of the other ones get a lot more choices. But obviously you have the option to play Space Marines generically or Dark Angels. So because they're like a sub-faction of the Adeptus Astartes, being just like a separate chapter, you don't get as many options for them. And I have to say, I looked through these and there's some cool stuff and everything. There's some cool rules and definitely like thematic, but they do seem underpowered. Now that's all being said that we don't know the actual points yet. So if something doesn't seem that good at 200 points, it might be really good at 100 points. So because we don't know the actual points yet, it's hard to say if these are like really weak or really strong. But I think overall, just looking at them, looking at what other options are available for like generic Space Marines and some of the other detachments and special rules, I gotta say the Dark Angels seem a little on the weak side. But again, the points could make up for that. But realistically, we don't necessarily want everything to just be like super cheap and then you just end up with like a horde Space Marine army. Some of the units should be like a little stronger than they really are. So the Lion is really good anytime you have an actual Primarch in your army too, and then you have like special rules for the actual faction itself, and then also the detachment. You have to keep in mind that that's going to make him substantially stronger. So that makes like balance issues as well, because now they have to balance the potential of you having the Primarch in your army versus not, and then also any of these detachments potentially having that Primarch. So in my opinion, having Primarchs in the Codex and available for the army makes it so that if you don't take that Primarch, your army is going to be substantially weaker because everything is balanced as if you're taking this guy, so he's not broken. So it definitely creates like a weird dynamic. Now he is really good, but again, it's going to come down to like the actual points cost and everything like that. I don't think he's broken by any means. Next we have the Inner Circle Companions. So there's a lot of hype behind these guys. The actual models are absolutely beautiful, but I've got to say they're substantially worse than Blade Guard. So like Blade Guard, the biggest difference is that they have an invulnerable saving throw. These guys do not have the invulnerable saving throw. They do have like an option for how they can attack though. They can either do like a Greatsword Strike or Greatsword Sweep. So that gives them the ability to like hit really hard against a single target and do 2 damage instead of 1. Or to kind of do like the sweep attack and then have the ability for like sustain hits 2, but only at 1 damage. So you have lethal hits with the strike or sustained hits with the sweep. So on 6s, you're going to get explosion and a lot more hits with the sweep. But both attacks are at strength 6 and -1 AP. So your normal power weapon is at -2 AP. And I didn't really see anything in here that increases the AP. So these are not going to be great for taking down characters. And like spoiler alert, as I went through here, it looks to me like the way they want you to play Dark Angels, or at least the way the Codex is written, you want to have sort of like a bunch of these units that do okay with a little lower AP, and then you want to have like big characters either in your army or joining those units with the big AP. So like the Lion has -4 AP 4 damage and -3 AP 1 damage with 8 and 16 attacks at strength 12 and strength 6, as where like your companions are going to be only at -1 AP and they don't gain a ton more attacks. But when you start like putting characters inside the squads, you can do stuff like give them an invulnerable save or give them exploding attacks, etc. So the Inner Circle Companion's main ability is the Braziers of Judgment, which means while a character is leading this unit, each time an attack targets this unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So they're going to give -1 to be hit, and that's shooting and combat. And then the Enmity of the Unworthy. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack that targets a character unit, add 1 to the hit roll. So they're designed to take down characters. So I gotta say the Inner Circle companions are a little bit underwhelming because they don't have an invulnerable save is probably my biggest issue. And then also only having -1 AP. They're pretty cool and pretty thematic, and obviously the models are really nice. So if we look over though to the actual characters and see what kind of synergy maybe Games Workshop is going for, units like Azrael give the unit that he's with, because of the Lion Helm, a 4-up invulnerable save, and then some other stuff as well. And then he gives +1 command point in your command phase every turn. So again, there's some really nice abilities in the characters, and they can buff the units that they're with, and I think that's been taken account. So some of the units on their own seem a little bit underwhelming. Belial, again, going to be able to buff his units, and he's at -2 AP with 2 damage. Ezekiel seems pretty good. He's got some cool psychic powers, but a lot of this stuff is very similar to what they had in the index. So moving along here, we see Samael, Lazarus, all that good stuff. And then we have the Deathwing Terminator squad and the Deathwing Knights. Like I mentioned earlier, the Deathwing Command squad is gone, so that's definitely kind of a bummer. No more Apothecary or anything like that. Also, the Deathwing Knights seem a little bit underwhelming as well. The leader of the squad can have the Great Weapon of the Unforgiven, which is -2 AP and 2 damage with some other abilities. But most of the guys are going to have either a Mace of Absolution or a Power Weapon. So the Mace of Absolution gives them -1 AP and 2 damage. The Power Weapon is going to be standard at -2 AP and 1 damage. So again, these guys are very durable. They have the -1 damage rule. They have a Watcher in the Dark to give them defense against mortal wounds. But like in a mirror match against themselves, you know, if you put Deathwing Knights against Deathwing Knights, if they hit themselves with the Mace of Absolution, it's going to be at -1 AP, 2 damage. So it's going to go down to 1 damage. So they're basically not going to be able to kill themselves. So you almost have to use the Power Weapon, which is -2 AP. So that's going to put them on their invulnerable save at least, but it's only going to be 1 damage. So with each one having 4 wounds and a 4-up invulnerable save, they are super durable, but they're not really that killy. And I think that's sort of the big problem with these guys, especially if they're pointed how they are in the book or how they were like in the new data slate at almost 300 points for 5 of them. Another big change is too, you can only take 5 of them per squad now. So the most you're ever going to be able to take 15 Deathwing Knights, 3 squads of 5. But honestly, unless the points come way down from what they are in this book, you're probably not going to be taking more than like 1 or 2 squads. So moving along here, we have the Ravenwing Command, a bunch of other stuff. I'm not going to do like a full Codex review or anything like that. I got to say that the Dark Shroud still seems pretty appealing. It still has the icon of Old Caliban aura. While a friendly Adeptus Astartes unit is within 6 of this model, models in that unit have a stealth ability. Each time a ranged attack targets that unit, the unit has a benefit of cover against that attack. So basically you could park this behind cover, theoretically like out of sight. It's pretty big, so it's going to be a little more difficult to hide it. But depending on what kind of terrain you have, the 6-inch aura ability could hit a bunch of different units and give them -1 AP, and then also potentially give them cover like out in the open. So this could definitely be nice with some of your heavy infantry, but again, I don't think there's anything like really crazy broken in this book. The flyers are pretty cool, but they've typically been like overcosted. Seems like Games Workshop really doesn't want them breaking the game. And then that's basically it for like the actual army rules. There's some stuff in here for like the Crusade rules and everything like that. If you're looking to play like more thematic games, a bunch of that actually. And then in the back, we have the actual points, which we can't really trust these points. They're probably going to be changed almost immediately as soon as the actual codex comes out, and there'll be like a digital points update specifically for Dark Angels, because we just got our recent points update and rules update for everybody else. So that being said, I gotta say it's super cool. It's nice quality and everything. I love the new models coming out for them. This is a really nice box set. There's a ton of value in this box set, but overall the Dark Angels seem like a little bit lackluster and kind of toned down. I really hope that Games Workshop doesn't hit them with like super cheap points to make up for the fact that they're a little bit underwhelming on the rules, because then you're going to just end up with like a big horde army of Dark Angels, which is just not ideal. So if you're trying to build like a Ravenwing or a Deathwing force, you can definitely do it. There's definitely some cool stuff to go along with it and some cool army rules, but I don't think Dark Angels are going to be winning many tournaments anytime soon. As far as the actual box set goes and the value inside, if you count the codex as 60 bucks and the cards as 35, you've got $95 in this box. The price on the box was $220. And then you have basically 3 Terminator squads, 2 regular, and the Deathwing Knights. And they're going to be priced at probably $65 a piece. We know already for the Terminators. So that's $195. And then we've got our character, which is probably going to be like 40 or 45 bucks. So that puts us at about $330. And then we have the 2 upgrade frames as well. And they're probably going to be somewhere around like 30 or 40 bucks a piece. So with the MSRP of like $220 on this box set and somewhere around like $360 to $375 in the box, it's actually a really good deal and really nice savings. So I would definitely recommend this box if you can pick it up, especially if you can still get it at a nice discount. But yeah, I don't want to go like fully into detail on this. I don't think Dark Angels are going to be like game breaking or anything like that. I think they're going to be fun. They're going to be thematic. But overall, I have to say the rules are a little bit underwhelming. I think the new Combat Patrol and its rules are pretty good. It's going to be fun and competitive, but removing the Redemptor Dreadnought was a good balance decision. Overall, the actual models themselves are like absolutely amazing, and you do get a lot of plastic inside this set. I really like the new upgrade frames. They are definitely cool. All the new models are really nice as well. The cool thing about these frames is they're going to upgrade everything inside of here, and then also like a ton of your regular models also. So if you have a bunch of Intercessors or something like that, Hellblasters, you're going to have tons of bits for them. So I think overall, we're all waiting on the Inner Circle Companions and then Asmodai. Hopefully we'll get a new Ezekiel model as well, and maybe some other Dark Angels. But I think what we've seen so far, aside from the rules being a little bit underwhelming, the new Dark Angels are definitely awesome. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you got any value out of this video, hopefully I've earned your subscription. But yeah, that is the unboxing of the Deathwing Assault Box. I gotta say, it's a great value, especially if you're after the Codex and cards. Now, as far as buying multiples of them, because a lot of the value comes from the cards and the Codex, it's probably not the best option. But I think one is a definite yes. So let me know what you think down below. But in the meantime, that's it from the Tabletop Bros. Later.